As Michael and Yvette have mentioned already, I've been fortunate enough to run a charity that focuses on mental health support, and I'll be talking about our support of SOS and our other charities later. But I'm here with my wife tonight primarily because we lost our daughter, Isabella, 5 years ago on April 13th, 2019. And I'd like to introduce you to Isabella. She was 22 when she died. Belle suffered from bipolar 2, a condition that made it hard for her to cope with the rigors of everyday life. Too hard, as it turned out. That's not to say Belle didn't try to live a normal life despite her condition. She was fiercely determined to do so. But that made her much more vulnerable to abuse at the hands of others. It's a well-known fact that people suffering from mental health issues are much more likely to suffer from abuse, especially sexual abuse, more so than people without such health concerns. And they're much more likely to internalize their trauma, making their emotional response to any further trauma that much more extreme. So it was with Belle. She suffered a serious sexual attack when she was 18, an attack from which she never recovered emotionally. She tried to take her life immediately afterwards. Thankfully, she survived, and we're so very grateful for the extra 4 years we had with her. She matured into a wonderful young woman who touched so many people's lives in her short life herself. But Belle never did tell us why she attempted suicide. We found that out later on after she had died. We knew she had mental health issues at the time, but not that she was bipolar. And simplistically, we connected the two. We were never to know that Belle's death was as much about her earlier trauma as it was about her bipolarity. Isabella tried to live a normal adult life, eventually settling down and moving in with her partner. But she was emotionally ill-equipped to cope with the exigencies of a normal long-term relationship. So when she experienced further trauma and the end of her relationship with her partner, she was unable to quell the turmoil of emotions that were swirling around inside of her. Her loneliness that night 5 years ago must have intensified her feelings of sadness, desperation, and rejection. And rather than seek help from us or from a friend, she decided to put an end to her suffering and took her own life. The autopsy report described the manner of her death, her final death throes, in harrowing detail. No one should ever have to die like that, and no parent should ever have to live with such an horrific image. As Belle's father, I'd looked forward to her wedding day when I would proudly lead her down the aisle on what would surely have been the happiest moment of her life. Instead, I carried her down the aisle to her final resting place on what will certainly be the most miserable day of my life. We're here today because each of us has suffered the loss of a loved one to suicide. We have all felt isolated by our grief because somehow loss by suicide is a special type of bereavement that sets us apart from the norm. And yet, we're here today, a group of people who are united in our grief, not isolated by it, determined to remember and honor our loved ones, to say out loud that there is no shame in having emotional or mental health issues, and to tell others who may now be suffering in silence that they are not alone. My wife and I started up our trust company 2 years ago and named it after Belle's initials, IMG, Isabella Meyer Goddard. We wanted to keep her memory alive through our little company and to do the very best we could for others in her name. We've been extremely fortunate to be running a huge charity, the Valor Foundation, that is dedicated to the alleviation of mental health suffering and the treatment of mental health conditions. One of my co-directors on that foundation, Steve, is with us here tonight with his wife, Michelle. It is, excuse me a second, just about to delete the rest of my speech. It's through that charity that we've been able to support the wonderful work of 3 British charities. The first is obviously SOS, Silence the Suicide, which is doing so much to destigmatize mental ill health, to provide free telephone help services to those in desperate need, and provide support hubs such as these mobile hubs that you see tonight for local communities. Yvette, Michael and Georgina have done a wonderful job so far, as have all of the team that work with them. The second charity is Big Moose, which provides free emergency therapy services to those who are feeling suicidal, and which has saved an incredible 49 people from taking their own lives in the past year. That's 49 families who might otherwise have been here tonight with you. And finally, Two Wish, which offers free bereavement aid and counselling to families that suffer the sudden loss of a child under the age of 25. Emma from Two Wish is here tonight. She's overseeing the charity's expansion into England from their base in Wales. All three of these charities are broadening their operations and reaching out to more and more people as a result of the funding that they have received from the Valor Foundation. They're all doing a wonderful job, but there is so much more that needs to be done in this country. Suicide rates have mercifully fallen over the past 40 years, but suicide is still the single largest cause of death amongst people between the ages of 20 to 34. That is simply unacceptable. And we're facing a new pandemic of mental ill health after COVID, with a wave of suicidal ideation bound to follow in its wake. Let's hope that there will be greater government resources urgently dedicated to helping people overcome their mental health challenges. That in years to come, there will be fewer and fewer people standing here like we are tonight, remembering loved ones. As a bereaved father, there's no comfort in the fact that my wife and I still have a wonderful son. Bereavement doesn't work like that. Our love for Sebastian is undiminished, but our family is now, and always will be, incomplete. Abby and I, my wife that is, and I separately hear from Belle every once in a while whilst we're asleep. We know it's not a dream. We both wake up feeling suddenly whole. We know that she's doing well. But I hope that others never have to go through what my daughter went through, what my wife, son, and I have been through, what you and your loved ones have all been through. Thank you for all being here tonight. Thank you.